One of the fastest ways to become undervalued is to become available to everyone. Your time is limited, your attention is limited, your energy is limited, your knowledge is limited. And yet many people give all of these things away as if there were an unlimited supply. They answer every message immediately. They accept every request. They solve everyone's problems. They give advice whenever someone asks. They rearrange their schedules for people who rarely do the same for them. They remain available late at night, early in the morning, and whenever someone suddenly decides they need something. At first, this looks generous. But there is a difference between generosity and unlimited access. Generosity is a choice. Unlimited access becomes an expectation. And once people begin expecting something from you, they stop noticing the cost of providing it. This is one of the most important psychological principles you can understand. People often become less conscious of what is constantly available. When your attention is always there, it becomes ordinary. When your help is always guaranteed, it becomes assumed. When your advice is always free, people can stop treating it as valuable. When your time is always flexible, your schedule begins to look like it belongs to everyone except you. This doesn't mean you should become cold, selfish, or difficult. It means you need to become selective. Your availability should have a reason. Your attention should have a purpose. Your time should serve priorities that actually matter. Imagine two people with the same level of skill. One answers every request immediately. The other has clear priorities and isn't constantly accessible. When the second person gives their attention, people notice it more, not because they are playing games, because their attention is limited. Scarcity creates awareness. This principle applies everywhere. A professional who is constantly interrupted struggles to produce their best work. A creator who responds to every demand loses focus. A business owner who says yes to every client eventually creates a business that serves everyone except its own strategy. Even in personal relationships, unlimited availability can create imbalance. You don't need to respond instantly to every message. You don't need to accept every invitation. You don't need to solve every person's crisis. You don't need to explain every decision. Sometimes saying, "I can't do that right now," is enough. That sentence doesn't make you rude. It communicates that your life has structure, and structure creates value. People respect time that appears to be respected by the person who owns it. This begins with respecting your own schedule. Protect your best hours. If you're building something important, don't allow every interruption to become a priority. If you're learning a valuable skill, don't sacrifice your practice time for every unnecessary request. If you're trying to improve your health, don't constantly abandon your routines to make yourself available. Every time you protect a priority, you communicate something to yourself and to others. My time has value. But there is an important distinction. Don't become artificially unavailable just to manipulate people. Don't ignore messages to create anxiety. Don't pretend to be busy when you're not. Don't turn scarcity into a psychological game. Real value does not require fake scarcity. Build a life that genuinely requires your attention. Have goals, have work, have responsibilities, have standards. Have interests that exist beyond what other people want from you. Then your limited availability becomes natural. You are not disappearing. You are simply living. And something else happens when you become selective with your attention. Your attention becomes better. Instead of being present with everyone and fully present with no one, you can give someone your complete focus when you choose to engage. Instead of spreading your energy across dozens of people, you can invest deeply in the people and projects that deserve it. Quality replaces quantity. That is how value increases. You don't need everyone to know you. You need the right people to understand what you bring. You don't need to be accessible to everyone. You need to be meaningful when you are accessible. And the same principle applies to your expertise. Stop answering every question automatically. Stop giving your best ideas away simply because someone asks. Sometimes people need information. Sometimes they need your time. Sometimes they need professional help. Learn the difference. Your generosity becomes more powerful when it is intentional instead of automatic. Because the goal is not to make yourself expensive by pretending you are difficult to reach. The goal is to become so intentional with your time that people understand access to you is valuable. And once you stop being constantly available, the next step is even more important. Becoming so rare in what you can do that people no longer see you as easily replaceable. The next step is understanding that being hardworking is not enough. There are millions of hardworking people in the world. They wake up early, stay late, sacrifice comfort, and do everything they are told. Yet many of them remain financially stuck because their effort is common. Hard work is valuable, but hard work alone is not rare. And when something is easy to replace, it becomes difficult to charge a premium for it. This is why you should stop competing only through effort and start competing through rarity. Ask yourself what you can do that most people cannot do well. What problem can you solve? What knowledge do you possess? What skill can you develop deeply enough that replacing you becomes difficult? That is where your value begins to change. Imagine two people who work equally hard. One performs a task that thousands of people can learn within a few weeks. The other has spent years developing a specialized ability that solves a serious problem. Both may be exhausted, both may be disciplined, both may work the same number of hours, but their economic value can be completely different. Why? Because the second person is harder to replace. This is one of the most important principles behind becoming expensive. You are not trying to become expensive by pretending you're special. You become expensive by becoming genuinely difficult to substitute. That requires depth. Most people collect skills at the surface. They learn a little about everything. They become familiar with tools, trends, and basic information. But familiarity is not expertise. If you want to become rare, go deeper. Don't simply learn how to use a tool. Learn how to solve problems with it. Don't simply learn information. Learn how to apply it. Don't simply complete tasks. Learn how to improve the system behind the tasks. Don't simply know what people want. Learn why they want it. Defeat creates differentiation, and differentiation creates leverage. The market has many people willing to work hard. It has fewer people who can produce exceptional results in difficult areas. That is why you should identify problems that are expensive when they remain unsolved. Businesses pay for solutions. People pay for results. Organizations pay for expertise. Clients pay for certainty. The more valuable the problem you can solve, the more valuable your contribution can become. This doesn't mean everyone needs to become a business owner or chase some glamorous career. The principle works in almost any field. A teacher can become unusually skilled at helping difficult students learn. A designer can specialize in work that directly increases conversions. A salesperson can become exceptional at negotiating complex deals. An engineer can develop expertise in a difficult technical area. A creator can become known for a specific style or subject that audiences deeply value. A manager can become the person who can stabilize a team during pressure. The field matters less than the principle. Become unusually good at something that matters, and understand that rarity takes time. You cannot decide today that you are rare and expect the market to agree tomorrow. You have to build evidence, study, practice well, improve, get feedback, refine your process, become better than you were last year. Eventually, your skill becomes noticeable. People begin asking for you specifically. Opportunities become more selective. Your reputation starts traveling ahead of you. And something psychological changes as well. When you possess a rare skill, you become less desperate. You don't have to accept every opportunity. You don't have to say yes to every request. You can negotiate. You can choose better environments. You can walk away from situations that undervalue you. This is where rarity creates freedom. Being rare doesn't mean becoming arrogant. It means creating options. The person who is easy to replace has fewer options because they must constantly compete. The person who is difficult to replace has more leverage because their contribution is harder to duplicate. But don't stop at being good. Aim to become dependable. A rare skill combined with reliability is far more powerful than talent alone. If people know you can consistently produce strong results, your value rises even further. Become rare in what you know. Rare in what you can do. Rare in how consistently you deliver. Rare in how calmly you solve difficult problems. Rare in how much responsibility you can carry. Then you no longer need to convince people that you're valuable. Your scarcity begins speaking for you. And once your skills become rare, the next question is unavoidable. How can you make that rare value continue producing results without being tied to every hour you work? There is a ceiling that almost every person eventually discovers when they rely entirely on their time. There are only so many hours available to sell. You can work harder, you can become faster, you can become more organized. You can wake up earlier and stay later, but eventually you reach the same limitation. Your time is finite. This is why the next level is leverage. Leverage means making one unit of effort produce a result much larger than the effort itself. Instead of repeatedly starting from zero, you build something that allows your work to multiply. This is one of the biggest differences between simply earning money and building wealth. A person who earns only through hours has to keep showing up for every payment. A person who builds leverage can create systems, products, assets, or distribution that continue producing value after the initial work is finished. Think about the difference between giving one person advice and creating a useful resource that can help thousands of people. The knowledge may be similar, but the scale is completely different. One effort reaches one person. The other effort can reach many. That is leverage. Technology is one of the clearest examples. A piece of software can perform the same task repeatedly without requiring someone to manually perform that task every time. A digital product can be created once and delivered many times. A strong video can continue reaching viewers after it has been published. An automated system can save hundreds of hours over the course of a year. The important thing is not the technology itself. The important thing is the principle. Build once, improve continuously. Lime's the result to keep working. Another form of leverage is knowledge. Rare knowledge becomes more valuable when it can be applied repeatedly. If you learn a process that helps one business increase efficiency, you can potentially teach that process to others. If you develop expertise in solving a recurring problem, you can turn that expertise into a service, product, system, or educational resource. Your knowledge becomes an engine rather than a one-time transaction. Capital can also create leverage. Money can be used to acquire tools, assets, businesses, or investments that have the potential to generate additional value. But the deeper principle isn't simply use money to make money. It is understanding that money can become a tool instead of remaining only something you consume. When every increase in income immediately becomes an increase in spending, you remain dependent on continued labor. When some of your resources are consistently directed toward building future capacity, your position can begin changing. People are another form of leverage when used ethically. One person has limited capacity. A capable team can accomplish much more. Leadership allows you to coordinate different strengths toward a larger outcome. Delegation isn't about avoiding responsibility. It is about recognizing which tasks require your personal attention and which tasks can be handled through systems and collaboration. The goal is not to make other people carry your life. The goal is to create structures where more value can be produced without requiring you to personally perform every step. This is why you should stop thinking only like a worker. Think like a builder. A worker asks, "What do I need to finish today?" A builder asks, "What can I create today that makes tomorrow easier?" That question is powerful. Maybe you can create a template. Maybe you can document a process. Maybe you can automate a repetitive task. Maybe you can create a product. Maybe you can build an audience. Maybe you can improve a system that saves time every week. These may seem like small decisions, but their value can compound. Leverage also changes your relationship with effort. You still work hard. You simply stop wasting your hardest work on activities that produce no lasting benefit. Instead of doing the same task 100 times, ask whether you can build a system that does it once and repeats the result. Instead of answering the same question repeatedly, ask whether you can create a resource that answers it for everyone. Instead of constantly chasing new opportunities, ask whether you can build an asset that attracts opportunities to you. That is strategic effort, and it requires patience because leverage often takes time to build before it becomes visible. The early stage may feel slower than simply working harder, but once the system begins functioning, your effort can start producing results beyond your personal hours. That is the point where your time stops being your only product. And when you reach that stage, the next transformation becomes unavoidable. Stop giving away valuable knowledge, attention, and expertise as if they had no price. There is a moment when generosity stops being generosity and starts becoming a habit that teaches people to undervalue you. You give advice whenever someone asks. You solve problems without being compensated. You offer your time because you don't want to appear selfish. You keep helping because you've convinced yourself that being useful means being valuable. But there is a difference between being generous and giving everything away. Your knowledge has value. Your attention has value. Your experience has value. Your time has value. And when you repeatedly give valuable things away without boundaries, people can become accustomed to receiving them without recognizing what they cost you. This is not an argument against helping people. Helping can be meaningful. Teaching can be meaningful. Giving can be meaningful. The problem begins when the giving is automatic, one-sided, and expected. Think about someone who constantly asks you for advice. You spend an hour explaining what they should do. They leave with a solution, but you receive nothing in return, not necessarily money, but sometimes not even gratitude, respect, or reciprocity. Then the same thing happens next week. Then again. Eventually, your expertise becomes part of their routine. They don't see the value because they never had to pay the cost of obtaining it. This is why you need boundaries around your knowledge. Not every question deserves an unlimited answer. Not every problem needs to become your responsibility. Not every person who asks for help deserves your highest level of effort. You can be generous with simple things and still protect the deeper value of your expertise. This becomes especially important professionally. If you know how to solve a problem that saves someone significant time, money, or stress, understand what that solution is worth. Don't confuse ease with lack of value. You may solve something quickly because you spent years learning how. The fact that it takes you 20 minutes doesn't mean the result is worth only 20 minutes of compensation. The value is in the years behind those 20 minutes. That is why experts are not paid only for the time they spend performing a task. They are paid for the judgment, experience, and specialized ability they developed before the task ever arrived. This is where many hardworking people make a mistake. They think, but this is easy for me. Exactly. It is easy because you became skilled. You should not punish yourself for becoming efficient. Your expertise should increase the value of your time, not decrease it. The same principle applies to emotional labor Some people constantly unload their problems onto you because they know you'll listen. You become the person everyone calls when they need comfort. You absorb their anxiety. You solve their conflicts. You carry their emotional weight. Eventually, you have no energy left for your own life. You can care about people without becoming permanently responsible for regulating their emotions. You can listen without becoming their only source of support. You can help without allowing every crisis to become your crisis. This is another form of becoming expensive. Your energy becomes selective. You don't make yourself unavailable because you think you're superior. You become selective because you understand that resources should be directed toward people and situations where they create genuine value. And there is an important psychological shift here. Stop feeling guilty whenever you receive fair compensation. Some people have been taught that asking for money makes them less generous, less kind, or less genuine. But fair exchange is not exploitation. If you provide a professional service, getting paid for it is normal. If you spend years developing expertise, charging appropriately respects the investment you made. If someone cannot afford your service, that does not automatically mean you should work for free. You can decide when generosity makes sense. You can offer a limited amount of help voluntarily. You can support someone you care about. But make those choices consciously. Don't let guilt make them for you. And don't let fear make them for you either. Sometimes people keep giving for free because they are afraid of hearing no. They fear that if they charge, people will walk away. But that fear can keep you trapped. Not everyone is your customer. Not everyone needs your service. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to your expertise. The people who genuinely value what you provide will understand that valuable things have a cost. Your goal is not to put a price on every human interaction. Your goal is to stop treating your most valuable resources as if they are worthless. Be generous by choice. Be helpful with intention. But know the difference between giving from abundance and giving because you are afraid to ask for your value. Because once you learn to protect and price what you genuinely bring to the table, the next level becomes clear. Build a reputation so strong that people recognize your value before you even explain it. There is a point where skill alone is no longer enough. You can become rare. You can develop leverage. You can learn to protect the value of your time and expertise. But if nobody trusts what you can do, your value remains invisible. That is why reputation matters. A strong reputation is one of the most powerful forms of leverage because it can raise the perceived value of your work before you even begin explaining it. Think about two people offering the same service. One is unknown. The other has a long history of producing excellent results. Who receives more attention? Who gets more trust? Who can usually command better opportunities? The answer is obvious. The second person has something the first person hasn't built yet. Evidence. Reputation is accumulated evidence. It is the record of what people can expect from you. If you consistently deliver, people remember. If you consistently disappoint, people remember that too. This is why you should stop thinking only about completing individual tasks and start thinking about the reputation every task is building. Every interaction becomes part of your record. Every promise becomes part of your record. Every deadline becomes part of your record. Every result becomes part of your record. Every mistake becomes part of your record, and so does how you handle the mistake. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be predictable in your quality. When people know that your work will be thoughtful, reliable, and professional, uncertainty decreases. And when uncertainty decreases, value often increases. This is why reliability can be more powerful than raw talent. A talented person who constantly misses deadlines can become difficult to trust. A highly skilled person who communicates poorly can create unnecessary uncertainty. A brilliant person who changes direction every week may never build a stable reputation. But someone who consistently delivers strong work, communicates clearly, and keeps their word becomes valuable because people know what they are getting. Consistency creates confidence in other people, and confidence in you creates opportunities. This is also why you should be careful with what you attach your name to. Not every project deserves your involvement. Not every partnership is worth accepting. Not every opportunity improves your reputation. Sometimes earning money today can create a cost tomorrow if the work damages your credibility. You should ask yourself, if people remember me for this, is that what I want them to remember? That question creates discipline, because once your reputation grows, you are no longer only selling a product or service, you are selling certainty. People are paying for the expectation that you will produce a result. That expectation is extremely valuable, and building it requires patience. You don't create a premium reputation through one impressive performance. You create it through repeated proof, one satisfied customer, then another, one strong project, then another one, promise kept, then another. Over time, small pieces of evidence become a larger identity. People begin saying, "Ask them. They know what they're doing." That sentence is worth more than any advertisement, because someone else is now explaining your value for you. This is where your reputation becomes a form of distribution. Instead of constantly chasing opportunities can begin finding you through referrals, recommendations, and previous results. But reputation also requires restraint. Be careful about promising more than you can deliver. Be careful about exaggerating your abilities. Be careful about making claims you cannot support. The temptation to look impressive today can destroy trust tomorrow. Be honest about what you know. Be honest about what you don't know, then improve. If you make a mistake, don't hide it, fix it, communicate, take responsibility. People don't always lose respect because you made a mistake. They often lose respect because you refuse to own it. Accountability can strengthen reputation because it shows maturity. And your reputation should not be limited to professional ability. It can include how you treat people, whether you stay calm under pressure, whether you respect confidentiality, whether you keep your word, whether people feel safe relying on you, whether you make situations better rather than more chaotic. These qualities compound together. Eventually, your name begins carrying meaning. Your work has a history. Your decisions have credibility. Your promises have weight. That is when you become expensive in the healthiest sense. Not because you demand a higher price, because people understand the value before they ever ask what the price is. And once your reputation begins creating demand, the final step is to build enough independence that you can choose which opportunities deserve your time, instead of accepting every opportunity simply because you need it. There comes a point where all the previous lessons come together. You have learned to protect your time, become rare, create leverage, charge appropriately for your expertise, and build a reputation people can trust. Now comes the final transformation. Building enough independence that you can choose instead of beg, because real value is not just earning more, it is having options. The person who desperately needs every opportunity has very little negotiating power. They accept the first offer. They tolerate bad conditions. They accept disrespect from clients, employers, partners, or even people close to them because they are afraid of losing the opportunity. They are not choosing. They are surviving. And survival creates desperation. Desperation changes your behavior. You become more available. You say yes too quickly. You accept less than you're worth. You explain yourself too much. You tolerate situations that you would normally reject. This is why the ultimate goal isn't simply to become more valuable. It's to become independent enough that your value gives you choices. Imagine receiving an offer that isn't right for you. If you desperately need the money, you may accept it. But if you have skills, savings, multiple opportunities, strong relationships, useful assets, or another source of income, you can say, "No, this doesn't work for me." That one ability can completely change your position. The power to walk away is often more valuable than the power to negotiate, because negotiation only works when you have alternatives, and alternatives come from preparation. Build them before you need them. Develop more than one valuable skill. Create multiple professional relationships. Build savings instead of spending everything you earn. Learn how money works. Allocate assets where appropriate. Develop a reputation strong enough to create opportunities. Build systems that reduce dependence on your personal hours. The goal is not to create a life where you never need anyone. That would be unrealistic. The goal is to create a life where you don't have to surrender your standards simply because you need one particular person or opportunity. That is optionality, and optionality is a form of power. It also changes your relationships. When you don't desperately need someone to stay, you stop chasing them. When you don't desperately need approval, you stop performing. When you don't desperately need one client, you stop accepting unreasonable demands. When you don't desperately need one job, you can focus on building skills that create better opportunities. When you don't desperately need instant income, you can sometimes make decisions based on long-term value rather than short-term pressure. This is why becoming expensive is really about becoming difficult to corner, not difficult to work with, not arrogant, not inaccessible for the sake of appearing important, simply independent enough to make rational decisions. That independence begins internally. You have to stop believing that every opportunity is your last opportunity. You have to stop believing that every rejection is a disaster. You have to stop believing that someone's refusal to recognize your value means you have no value. There will always be another path for someone who keeps developing themselves. That doesn't mean every opportunity will return. Some doors close permanently, but capability creates new doors. That's why skills matter. That's why reputation matters. That's why ownership matters. That's why leverage matters. Everything you've built creates optionality, and optionality gives you the freedom to say no. But saying no is only powerful when you're willing to accept what comes after it. Maybe you lose the opportunity. Maybe someone becomes disappointed. Maybe you have to start again. Maybe you have to wait. Self-respect requires tolerating temporary uncertainty in exchange for long-term control. That is not always comfortable, but comfort is not the ultimate goal. Freedom is. There is also a responsibility that comes with becoming valuable. Don't use your leverage to exploit people. Don't overcharge simply because you can. Don't manipulate scarcity to create insecurity. Don't make people feel inferior because they cannot afford you. Value should create mutual benefit. The healthiest version of power is the ability to create something so useful that people willingly exchange resources for it. That is sustainable, that is credible, that is valuable. And when you reach this level, your mindset changes completely. You stop asking, how do I convince people to pay attention to me? You ask, what can I build that deserves attention? You stop asking, how do I get people to value me? You ask, how do I become more valuable? You stop asking, how do I stay needed? You ask, how do I create enough options that I can choose? That is the final transformation. Don't be free in the sense of being endlessly available, endlessly giving, and endlessly dependent on approval. Become valuable, become rare, become useful, build leverage, protect your time. Own what you create, build a reputation that travels ahead of you, and create enough independence that you can walk away when the price is no longer worth paying. Because the person with the most power is rarely the person who demands the highest price. It is the person who can confidently decide what is worth their time and what isn't.